Welcome to Adventures in Coffee, a podcast by Caffeine magazine, sponsored by Oatly and iThinker.
In this first series, Jools and I explore the world of coffee for people who are curious about what's in their daily cup of joe.
Now, we care more and more about where our food and drink comes from, which is exactly why we made this podcast, so we can unravel the knotty world of coffee.
We're going to be bouncing around the world, chatting to experts, and answer the questions you've had bouncing around your noggin for a while.
I'm Jools Walker, a very proud East Londoner who you'll either find behind a bike or behind a tasty cup of coffee, and I'm very much your everyday coffee lover.
I'm Scott Bentley, I'm the founder of Caffeine magazine, and you'll find me behind an espresso machine or maybe a pour over.
So, the idea for this episode began when I received a delightful package in the post from Scott.
You had said to me you'd gone to the supermarket, you bought another boring bag of beans. I had some lovely coffee that had just been delivered. I thought I'd share the spoils.
It was very, very lovely of you to do that, Scott. But I also wanted to know a little bit more about it. Like, it was great quality beans, it was a great roast, it was top notch, and I knew nothing about the person who made this coffee happen. And I wanted to know more about the person, but I couldn't find any more information on them.
I mean, yeah, of course there's a farmer. I just don't think people care too much about that stuff. I mean, do they really need to know the farmer? He's got a three-legged dog called Barry. Does people care about that? I don't know.
I'm going to say that people aren't actually given the opportunity to know more about it. Just think, when I'm in the supermarket, which is where I usually get my coffee from, I'm pushing my shopping trolley down the aisle and I see all of the bags of coffee all neatly stacked on the shelves. I go to grab my bag of coffee and all it says on it is Colombian coffee. Like, what else? We're talking about the fact that people are becoming more curious and more invested as to where their food and drink comes from. But if that information isn't readily available for the consumer, how are they supposed to discover it?
Yeah, I mean, I do hear you, Jules, and I think this is one of the reasons why I've decided to do this and to put this to the test.
So, we're going to give two different coffees, one with a story and okay flavours, and one with no story but incredible flavours, and see which one our highly respected independent coffee adjudicator wants to put in their coffee cup the next morning.
Okay, let's get down to the details. I'm going to get this great, amazing geisha from my friend Sadiq over at Amaret in Notting Hill. And I'm going to nerd out with him on the flavours, but I am not allowed to talk about where it's come from, any of that sort of superfluous information.
And I've got a coffee, which, because I know that it's been, I think, verified, I actually know that it comes from Luz Chacon. Now, she's a farmer over in Colombia, and I'm going to get to know her whole life stories. Now, we're not going to talk about flavours. In fact, we purposely chose a coffee of hers that's not necessarily her best, but I do need to give a quick shout out to Nick and the team at Assembly for roasting this up for us.
Now, you probably want to know, dear listener, who is this mythical, highly respected, independent coffee adjudicator that we have drafted in for this experiment?
I present to you Mama Velo, my mother. Now, she's going to try both of the coffees side by side, and she's going to hear about the flavours from Scott and the story about the coffee from me. And then based on that, she's going to choose which one she'd rather have the next morning.
Yeah, I think I'm a bit at disadvantage here, Jules. I think she's going to be biased in your favour.
No. Mama Velo is not going to be biased at all. She's very opinionated, and she will definitely tell it like it is.
Okay, so let's talk about Mama Velo's credentials. What's her coffee drinking experience? What's her palate like?
Mama Velo is extremely down to earth. Now, when she was at work before retiring, back in the day, she would start it off with a cigarette in one hand and a cup of instant coffee in the other.
That's very rock and roll.
But I've got to tell you, she is the human embodiment of seasoning. When Mum used to cook for special occasions, we would have family travelling from every corner of the UK to come and taste her food. So
I'm waiting for my invitation, Jules. It must have been stuck in the post somewhere. Great. To kick this off, I'm going to be speaking to Sadiq from Amaret.
But before we do that, let's hear a quick word from our sponsors.
Jools.
Yes?
Did you drink coffee this morning?
Yeah, of course I did.
What did your farmer get paid for that?
Got no idea. How would I figure that out?
Well, you'll probably have to go back to your roaster, who would then have to forward that query on to who they bought it from, the importer, who would then probably have
Scott, how long will that actually take to go through that?
Do you know, I have no idea whatsoever.
Now, you see, if the coffee was iFinker verified, I could have figured that out by scanning the iFinker QR code on the bag of coffee, which would have been a lot quicker than your waffle.
So I suppose what you're saying is if you don't want to listen to me waffle and you want truly transparent coffee, you should ask your roaster to get their coffee iFinker verified. Okay, Jools, this first coffee is this delicious geisha coffee. Now, I am going to jump on a call with Sadiq from Amaret, and we're going to nerd out on some flavour.
And remember, Scott, it's only the flavours that you're talking about, not the story.
All right, then.
Hey, Scott.
Hey, how you doing? You well?
Very well, thank you, Scott. Lovely to hear from you.
Thanks again for sending this incredible coffee to me. Can you talk our listener through the journey of what happens from when that bag literally lands in your warehouse?
Yeah, I mean, let me just quickly kind of take you through the journey because it all begins with the greens. And of course, as is the case with, many high quality coffees, this one arrives at our roastery vacuum packed in 15 kilo bags. And when you initially slice open one of these vacuum packed bags and the air from outside gushes in to fill the vacuum, you get this enormous waft of the green coffee itself, which is absolutely tremendous. So you get this huge waft of apples, of tropical fruit, of strawberries.
And you get this from the unroasted coffee, do you?
From the unroasted coffee itself, yeah. The promise and the potential is already very, very evident.
Sadiq, I've got your coffee in front of me. So you've got on the bag here wild strawberry, ripe tropical fruit, cacao fudge, honey, oolong, white florals, lime with a papaya finish. Now, I don't think many people have eaten a white floral or white flower, but, raw honey, how is raw honey different to like runny honey? Some of these flavor descriptors are so specific.
No, they are indeed. And the thing is that it's not all apparent immediately at the outset. I think these different characteristics are either more apparent on the palate or they're more apparent on the nose. And they'll be more apparent at different stages of the brewing process.
Right.
So, for example, I would say that the cacao fudge and the raw honey aspects of it are more apparent up front when it's freshly brewed and it's at a higher temperature, especially on the nose. And then as it cools further, that's when the ripe tropical fruit becomes more apparent. As it then cools further, I think you start getting into the sort of oolong and white floral aromatics aspect of it with the sort of tea-like mouthfeel as well. And then again, after all of that, it sort of transforms when it's completely cooled into pure sort of lime and sort of dried papaya finish.
That's really kind of you. Thanks again for your time. Bye-bye, Sadiq.
No, cheers. Thank you, Scott.
Oh, Jools, I've just had this great conversation with Sadiq. Your mum is going to totally flip out over these flavours.
Whoa, okay, hold your horses there, Scott. I also believe that every cup of coffee has a great story behind it, and we need to find out what those stories are. I reached out to our friends iFinker, who actually put me in contact with a coffee farmer in Colombia called Luz Chacon. Now, I don't know anything about her and I don't know her story, but I get the feeling that when my mother tries her coffee and hears the story, it will have more of an impact than just the flavours that are dancing around on your tongue. Now, just a heads up as well, Luz doesn't speak English, so we have a translator in to help tell her story.
Hola.
Hey Luz, thank you so much for taking time to have this call with me. Now, I've got your coffee here in my hand and I'm going to be serving it to my mum, which I'm quite excited about. But I'd love to know a little bit more about you.
Bueno, pues mi nombre es Luz Elba Chacón, tengo 52 años.
My name is Luz Elba Chacón. I am 52 years old.
Como cafetera llevo...
I am fourth generation farmer in this beautiful work.
Esta linda labor. Soy mamá, cabeza...
I am a mother, head of family of 2 children.
Es una niña de 30 años, una niña ya grande.
She's a girl, she's 30 now, well, she's a woman, and my boy is 27 years old.
Es catador de café.
He's a coffee taster and has his own projects here on the farm.
It does sound like that coffee is very much in your life and running through your blood. One of the things that I can hear are the birds singing in the background, and it makes me want to know what the farm is actually like.
La finca se llama Luna de Miel.
The farm is called Honeymoon.
Mi finca consta de...
My farm is 6 hectares, 2 of which have coffee.
Pero aquí hay, por ejemplo...
But here we have, for example, some animals that we call them the stinky rabbis.
Rabihediondos. El nombre...
The name, let's say, vulgar local name.
Son unos animales grandes, muy bonitos que hacen...
They are big animals, they are very beautiful, and they make this big nest that they hang like backpacks from the big palm trees.
4 palmas. Hay gorriones que le llamamos las gallinas de la finca.
They are sparrows, we call them the chickens of the farm.
Está el dormilón, el morrocoy que todas las noches...
We have the sleepyhead that every night we have the pleasure of listening to him.
Ese gusto de escucharlo.
It sounds like a very beautiful place to live and work. I'd like to ask what a typical day is like.
En un día normal, pues...
In a normal day, I wake up before 6 in the morning, you know, with the crowing of the roosters.
6 de la mañana con el cantar de los gallos. Debo ordeñar, por ejemplo, una vaca.
Then I need to milk the cow. For example, before you called me for this interview, I was just squeezing the teats of the cow.
Soltarle las tetas a la vaca. Ayudo a mi madre, pues, a organizar.
Then I help my mother because, well, she's a little bit old.
Y luego nos venimos con el hijo.
And then I go with my son to work the farm. We fertilize, weed, pick the coffee.
De yerbar o cosechar el café, también lo hacemos.
I am in love with organic farming.
O sea, soy una enamorada de la agricultura orgánica. Sí, o sea, para mí es muy importante.
For me, it's very important because it's not only about producing and exporting the coffee, but also to nurture the soils for us today, but also for future generations.
Cultivar ese suelo para las presentes y futuras generaciones. Yo ya tengo 2 hijos.
I have 2 kids, but I don't have grandchilds.
No muy lejano poderlos tener.
But I hope one day soon I will have them.
Y dejarles un suelo donde ellos lo puedan aprovechar al máximo.
And I want to leave them a soil which they can make the most of.
Luz, if it isn't too intrusive to ask, it would be wonderful to hear more of your life story.
Bueno, pues afortunadamente mis padres viven.
Well, fortunately, my parents are alive. I am the oldest of 3 siblings, the only woman.
Y de los 3 hermanos, pues uno desafortunadamente...
And of the 3 siblings, well, one... Unfortunately.
Luz, we can absolutely talk about something else if this is too difficult for you.
No, tranquilo, no pensé que me afectara tanto.
No, it's okay. I didn't think this will affect me so much.
No, lo que pasa es que un hermano no lo asesinaron hace 21 años.
No, what happened is that one of my brothers, he was assassinated 21 years ago.
Oh.
Y bueno, él era también un aporte muy importante aquí en la finca.
And he was also a very important part of this farm.
Yeah.
Sí, le gustaba mucho el campo y éramos los 2 que trabajábamos mucho aquí, ¿no?
He really liked the farm and, well, both of us, we work a lot here.
Oh, wow.
Yo, digamos, fui mamá, cabeza de familia.
Let's say I am a mother. I am the head of the family.
Pero el papá de mi hija fue asesinado.
The father of my daughter, he was assassinated when my daughter was only 4.
Yeah.
Y ya después tuve a mi hijo y...
And then I had my son. But his father, you know, life changed, things happened, and, well, he got married with someone else.
Oh, Luz, thank you so much for sharing that with us.
Okay.
Now, Luz, I'm just going to explain this for our dear listener, that you're part of a program called Coffee for Peace. Now, your farm is in Cauca, an area that was until a few years ago part of a conflict zone. Now, a peace agreement was recently signed, and Coffee for Peace offers farmers in this region a way to earn more money on their coffee and provide rural employment in what was a historically overlooked part of Colombia. Now, would you mind sharing some more of your experience with the Coffee for Peace project with us?
Here
you have cultivation of illicit products.
Grupos al margen de la ley.
They are groups outside of the law.
Entonces el café es como una alternativa.
So coffee is like an alternative.
What sort of illicit groups are they?
Hay de todos. Hay pues disidencias de las FARC.
Everything. You have violent political groups, paramilitary,
A imponer una zozobra en el
people who impose their rules on us and disturb the peace.
Y ahora, cuando se firmaron los acuerdos de paz,
And now we have a peace agreement.
dijimos, bueno, ya vamos a tener paz, ¿sí?
And then we thought, and now we will have peace.
No, pues por un tiempo sí, pero
But
ahora
no.
nuevamente
I mean, for some time, yes. But then again, they come and they impose their rules on us.
siempre he dicho que la paz se hace, pero
I have always said that peace is made through social justice, social investments, and investments in the land.
ese proyecto del Café para la Paz.
This project, Coffee for Peace, gives us alternatives.
I already feel like that my mother is going to taste the love that goes into this coffee. I was wondering if you had a message that you would like to send to my mother while she is drinking your coffee.
A ver, dígale ¿cuál sería el mensaje?
Tell her that this coffee she's drinking, it is produced by a woman on a farm.
Producido por una mujer campesina, enamorada de la agricultura limpia,
In love with clean organic agriculture.
y que no sea la única taza que se tome, sino que se tome muchas tazas más.
And I hope this is not the only cup she will drink. I hope she will drink many, many, many cups of our coffee.
Y que cuando desee venir, las puertas
She
están
is
abiertas.
always welcome if she wants to come. Our doors are always open. We have a program with my kids where tourists can visit our farm. It is called The Route of Coffee and Honey.
La ruta del café y la miel.
Oh, that's lovely.
Entonces, que ojalá algún día puedan venir acá a conocer de mano.
Hopefully, one day you can come and get to know for yourself where coffee comes from and all the steps that coffee takes to get to the table of your beautiful mommy.
Llevarlo hasta la mesa de la linda mamita de ella.
That's wonderful. I love the idea of actually coming over to Colombia as well to visit your farm. My parents come from the West Indies. My father's Jamaican, and there is a history of coffee growing there as well, but I don't know that much about it. So the idea of going somewhere outside of my own familial background to see how coffee growing is done there would be incredible. My mum would love that as well in regards to traveling. So that would be beautiful.
¡Qué bien!
Luz, is there anything else you'd like to say?
Yo soy la representante.
I am the legal representative of the Association of Organic Producers for a New Future.
Todo el esfuerzo que una mujer campesina.
When we, women farmers, want to achieve our goals, we move
No
forward
hay nadie que nos ataje.
and no one can stop us.
Ya, no hay nadie.
No one.
That's beautiful and very true as well. Luz, it was an absolute pleasure speaking to you today.
Ok, que con muchísimo gusto. Hasta luego.
Take care.
Bye bye.
Bye. Well, that was quite an incredible and actually quite emotional conversation that I had with Luz. But before we put these coffees to the test with Mama V, let's have a quick word from our sponsors.
Jules,
Yes,
have you ever made a flat white?
I've attempted to make flat white at home.
How do you steam your Oatly when you make a flat white at home?
It kind of stops looking like Oatly when I do it because I overboil things. I mess it up, Scott.
Do you want a tip?
Go on then.
You get your steam wand, you stick it in your Oatly, you turn it on. When it becomes too hot for your hand, is already getting too hot for your mouth.
I'll carry that knowledge with me into my coffee making.
So rude. You asked for a tip.
Adventures in Coffee has been brought to you by Oatly.
Hello, Mama Velo. How are you today?
I'm fine. I'm fine this morning.
Thank you so much for sharing your time and your taste buds with us today. Before we present these two coffees to you, tell us a little bit about your coffee drinking history. I mean, when did you start drinking coffee? Was it when you were growing up in Trinidad and Tobago?
Yeah, I know from when I was small, my grandfather used to work on the docks, so he used to bring in stuff from all over the world. And he used to make coffee. You know, in the West Indies, kids not allowed coffee when they're small, so we had to sneak a taste of this coffee from him. Oh my God, he used to boil it, and then he'd strain it. And when I tasted this coffee, it was bitter, and he used to drink it. It's like if we were drinking poison. It was a very thick coffee in a very small cup.
All right then, Scott, I think we need to put this to the test. I think we should probably start with yours because Mum's she's got this coffee in her hand. She's got the first one. She's desperate to taste it. This is the thing.
Well, I think you should. I think you should let her taste it.
Okay, well, she's taking a sip now.
It's good around you. It's different. I've never had coffee without sugar, but I think I'll drink this coffee without sugar.
Well, one of the things you should have noticed with this, Mama V, is it should be quite smooth. It wasn't the same bitter coffee that you're probably used to from before. And the other thing that you should really get from this is that it's a lighter brew. It's not heavy and thick that you would necessarily associate with those other coffees that maybe you used to drink many years ago.
Yeah, it doesn't taste like any coffee I've drunk before.
You may be thinking it has more something akin to like a tea, maybe like an oolong tea.
That is just it.
Yeah.
Even when I look at it, I said it doesn't look so dark. I can taste something so lemony-like.
I have to taste some of this coffee myself. I'm going to indulge. I'm with Mama V with what she was saying about the sort of citrusy flavours that were coming out of it. But this is super sweet. There's something about this. There's a really nice sweetness that's coming from it as well.
Well, I think that's pretty much my pitch, Mama V. I hope that Jools can convince you that her coffee is great too.
Okay, Mum, I'm going to give you my coffee to try now. And it's by a female farmer called Luz Chacon. Now, I'm not going to tell you anything about the flavours. I'll let you taste that for yourself. But I am going to tell you the story about her farm and how she got into this. She's a female farmer. It's a generation. It's beautiful land that she's got in Colombia. Children are involved in this as well. And this particular coffee is called Coffee for Peace. And Luz Chacon told me to tell you that it was made with love. The idea that the cup of coffee that you will have in front of you in just a moment is actually doing greater good for other mothers out there as well.
Yes.
Wow, Jools, you really did pluck those heartstrings, didn't you? That was quite the symphony.
Okay, it's taste time. My mum is now taking a sip of Luz Chacon's coffee. All right, Mum. Are you feeling anything with this coffee? Anything at all?
Not as much as number one.
I feel like you've got something on the tip of your tongue that you want to say.
The suspense is killing me, Mama V.
I know.
No, it doesn't, It tastes a bit bitterish.
Okay, so I'm going to indulge myself and have a try of Luz Chacon's coffee as well. The first thing I'm going to say is that it is good coffee. It isn't blowing me away in the same sense that the geisha coffee is. I'm going to be honest. It tastes kind of chocolatey, like a bitter chocolate.
Bitter, I would say. Bitter. I think you're right. That's a bitter feeling that I...
Like dark chocolate. Nothing wrong with dark chocolate. Of course, I love dark chocolate, but it is a good cup of coffee.
Okay, Mama V. So I think we're all dying to know, if you could choose a cup of coffee to drink tomorrow, would you choose Luz Chacon's coffee or this geisha coffee?
Number one.
Thank you.
I told you Mum will tell it how it is.
Well, Jools, I hope you don't feel too distressed about the fact that I whooped your ass again. Mama V, the tenner's in the post, so look out for that.
Why did you tell her?
Well, it was an absolute dream to meet you.
Okay.
You were incredible. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks very much for having me.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Yeah, bye.
Oh, Scott, so the tasting happened a few hours ago. You know, I've got to say, this whole thing still breaks my heart. Because I enjoyed having that conversation with Luz, and I just felt like I had a connection with her. When she was telling me about her life story, also when she was being really frank about some of the stuff that had happened to her in her life as well, like her brother being murdered as well, and actually talking about that out loud. The fact that she even invited me and my mum to come to her farm, that really hit me. And that's the thing in the nicest way that I was feeding into immediately, because there was that human touch and that human connection. Cheesy as that sounds, it really is. And I was just like, yes, this is the story. This is the information that the everyday consumer should know about their coffee. But my wonder is how you communicate the stories of the farmer to the drinker in the way that Luz was able to do that to me. And I was there.
Yeah, it's difficult because I think, you obviously had a one-to-one conversation with her. That kind of thing is incredibly difficult to put over in terms of, on a bag of coffee where you've got maybe 30 words to sort of say something. They're just not as evocative of actually speaking to that person and hearing her story.
So, I know that it's now possible to find Luz. You can scan a QR code on some bags of coffee that you pick up in the supermarket, and you're then connected with the farmer. You get to speak to them and hear their stories. So the technology is there for us to do that. And that's something that, in another lifetime didn't even exist.
And as something that you said to me really struck a chord. People don't have the opportunity to connect with these stories. If we do have these QR codes, if we do have these stories that if we want to find out we can, then people will. Not everybody, but more people will. And if enough people do, it may change slowly. And now it's time for the credits.
This podcast was produced by James Harper, the creator of the coffee podcast Filter Stories.
Yep, he also tinkles the ivories and plays that piano music you can hear in the background. Now, we've put links to the show notes to Sadiq's roastery and the geisha coffee that he roasted for us. The links to Luz Chacon's, I think, a profile from her farm in Colombia.
Now, if you like the show, you know what you need to do. Smash that subscribe button on your podcast app. Smash it! That way, you don't miss the next episode.
You can help us in other ways by leaving a review on things like Apple Podcasts or Castbox.
You can also follow Caffeine Magazine on Instagram, so you can find Mr. Caffeine himself, Scott, at Caffeine Mag, me, Jools, at Lady Velo, and of course, James Harper, our wonderful producer at Filter Stories Podcast.
Did you enjoy listening to Luz's story? Would you like to hear more from farmers? Let us know and we can do that for season 2.
Now, in the next episode, Scott and I are heading into our kitchens to lay to rest a very long-running debate.
Instant coffee. Is it rubbish or is it good for something?
Now, we are going to put it to the test by showing you how to make a delicious tiramisu and coffee ice cream, and there is no fancy equipment to be used at all. The recipes for it are so easy, they are practically child's play.
You're going to need some mascarpone cream, some eggs, some sugar, some ladies' fingers biscuits, and some coffee.
So the question on everybody's lips is, what's better? Instant or specialty for making these desserts?
No.
Oh my God. I'm not trying to poison you, Neil, I promise.
Thank you so much for listening, and we will speak to you next time.